To solve mixture problems is the objectives for today. And the learning targets to find and use percentages and to use proportions. Example number 1. A mixture problem will look like this, and a 730 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 20% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 10% acid solution? So think of it like this. This is 20% acid in that container. The rest is water. What you have to do is find out how much water you have to add to that container to make that not a 20% solution, but a 10% solution. You add so much water that the acid becomes 10% in comparison to the water that's with it. To do that, you have a couple of steps to do. Here is the first one. First, if it's 20% acid, then you have to find out how much in milliliters of that 730 is 20%. So on your calculator, you would have to do 730 times 0.20. And 730 times 0.20 should be 146. So of that 730 milliliters, 146 milliliters of that will be acid. Now, how much water would I have to add in order to make a 10% solution? So in other words, this is how much acid is there now. We want to figure out that 146 is 10% of a larger number. So 146 is 10% of a larger number. We want to find that larger number, x. You set up a proportion. 146 over some higher number is the equivalent to 10 over 100, which is 10%. Cross multiply to get 10x equals 14600, 14,600. And divide 14,600 by 10 to get 1460. So in order for 146 to be 10% of a larger number, that larger number must be 1,460 milliliters. Now, what did we start with in this entire container here? 730 milliliters. Now we have to add a certain amount of water to that to make this a 10% solution, to where it's 10% of the contents of the container. So if we started with 730, but we need to raise the volume up to 1460, when you do that subtraction, you can figure out the difference, and that's how much water is to be added. 1460 minus 730 is 730 milliliters. That's how much water must be added to make a 10% solution. Example number 2. In this case, we have a 315 milliliter solution. Kind of have an extra mark in there. 315 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 16% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 10% solution? So we're going to find out how much of this 315 milliliters is acid in milliliters. So we have 315 milliliters times 0.16. So 315 times 0.16 is going to be 50.4 milliliters. That's how much acid that is in milliliters. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 10% acid solution? So now this 50.4 milliliters of acid must be 10% of a larger number. So 50.4 in comparison to a number we don't know is equal to 10%. Cross multiply to get 10x equals 504, and you must move the decimal place one place, two place. Actually, it's just two places. So I need to get rid of this one. Move it over two places, and you should have 5040. Divide 5040 by 10 to get 504. Now that's how much the contents must be of the new volume. So it would be 504 milliliters, and you started with 315. Your new one must be 504, so you must do that subtraction. 504 minus 315 and come up with 189 milliliters. That's how much water must be added to make that 16% acid solution be a 10% acid solution. Practice number 1. In this problem, you have a 925 milliliter solution of acid in water, and it contains 7% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 4% acid solution? You have 925 milliliters and 7% are acid, so we need 925 times 0.07. 925 times 0.07 is going to be 6475. That's how many milliliters we have in acid right now. But it must be 4% of the total volume of the contents of that jar. Therefore, so what you're going to have to do is 64.75 is 4% of what number? This is the new percentage that it must become. Cross multiply to get 4x equals 6475. And when you divide 6475 by 4, then you're going to get an answer for x of 1618.75. That's the new total volume that there must be. And what we started with was 925. So we have 1618.75, and then 925 must be subtracted from that. So subtract 925 and come up with 693.75 milliliters of water. Practice number 2. A 615 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 12% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 9% acid solution? The solution for the practice problem, we have to figure out 12% of 1650 to find out how many milliliters of acid we have. So 615 times 0.12. Do that in your calculator and come back with an answer of 73.8. Now that 73.8 must then become 9%, because we're going to add water to this solution. And how much water do we have to add? That's what we're trying to find out. So 73.8 milliliters of acid over some number equals 9 over 100. So cross multiply to get 9x equals 7380. Divide 7380 by 9 to come up with 820. We started with 615. Therefore, we have to add this amount of water, which is going to be 205 milliliters.